Hi there everyone, my name is Morgan McCann. I'm the head of New World for Foodstuffs North Island, and it's that special time of year again where we get to kick off things for the New World Wine Awards into its 19th year. And we're doing things a little bit differently this year. Obviously we can't see you in person to do a tasting with the top 50, so we've sent you each a pack that should have arrived from Baseline, and that includes a couple of our gold medal winning wines with some top 50 booklets. And what we hope you're doing is you're together with your management team and your liquor team. Hopefully there's some cheese and crackers in front of you, and you've got a bottle of that top 50 open for you to try. And for the next wee while, we'd like you to enjoy a glass of one of the top drops on us, pop the party poppers, and celebrate what New World has achieved over the past few weeks. What we're going to run through over the next wee while on this video, you'll hear from our co-judges of the Wine Awards for this year, Sam Kim and Jen Parr, who will talk to you all about the wine varietals in the top 50. You'll also hear from Robert Hogg from New World Durham Street, who's going to talk to you about some different selling techniques with customers on the floor. And then also you'll hear from Natalie Christensen from Yealands. Then there'll be a quick quiz from some of our support centre staff that are bringing the Wine Awards to you this year, and then some extra wine tasting tips for the experts amongst us from some of those in the know. So we hope this gives you a great opportunity to sit back, relax, have a virtual update on the New World Wine Awards for this year, and really hope you nail the execution this year. We think customers will be looking forward to it, and hopefully we can see you all in person next year. Thanks very much.
As we know, Sauvignon Blanc is sort of the queen of New Zealand wine, certainly in Marlborough, but there are great examples pretty much anywhere in New Zealand where grapes are grown. So in Auckland, Waiheke Island, Gisborne, down in Hawke's Bay, Martinborough or Wellington wine country. We see them from certainly Nelson, Canterbury, and all the way down in Otago. So it's a grape that is truly a New Zealand grape. We look for freshness. We look for purity. We look for length, we look for interest, we look for flavor, and we look for that diversity. So there's no one style that always gets a gold medal. Oaked examples and some Sauvignon Blancs from the warmer climates, like higher in the North Island, might show a more textural style, whereas the further south in the cooler climates might show that very crisp, fresh, acid-driven styles.
It was a terrific vintage 2021, and we were blessed with so many fantastic wines. 7 gold medals, they're all delicious. They're like my little children. I love them all. But of course, I have the favorite, the Champion Sauvignon Yealands, and that is terrific. It's got just enough herbaceous, but with a beautiful ripe tropical fruit as well. And it just explodes in your mouth and so delicious. And there's one that's a little bit more expensive, Two Rivers. It's slightly more pricey because it's a smaller production, but it is made with a smaller crop and perhaps not quite as luscious as other Sauvignon Blancs, but it is stylish and classy and just a little bit sort of a linear, if you like, and longer palate. And, you know, people wanting sort of a special Sauvignon for dinner parties and stuff, the Two Rivers is fabulous.
As a winemaker, I can tell you that Pinot Gris is a hearty variety that grows well everywhere in New Zealand. Excellent Pinot Gris tends to be a dry style wine. However, it is a variety that's very well suited to medium or off-dry styles as well. A fact worth mentioning is it is one of the most versatile food pairing varieties in existence. And it goes well with everything from vegetarian to carnivorous and anything in between. So if in doubt, Pinot Gris is a great choice. When we're judging it, we look for, again, diversity in style. We'll see some really crisp, fresh examples where we might talk about lemon and zest and citrus and crunchy apple. And then we see some richer, riper styles that are more oily and textured, and we might think of florals and some spicy characteristics. We look again for diversity in style.
You can see why Pinot Gris is so popular. I call it SUVs, you know, suburban utility vino. It's just so versatile, as Jen mentioned, with the food matching. And it is quite comforting and soothing, refreshing wine. The styles of New Zealand Pinot Gris pretty much narrow down to that off-dry, medium dry style that Jen mentioned. And most of the ones that we've seen are on the drier side, particularly the Rapara Springs, Summer House. There's 3 of them, perhaps a little bit sweeter, still not overly sweet, medium dry, the Stoneleigh, Villa Maria, and Waipara Hills. They're just a little bit more unctuous. They're all delicious wines.
Now we're going to talk about a category that we refer to as aromatic whites. And in this category, we have the Alsatian grapes like Riesling and Gewürztraminer, and both have been thriving in New Zealand for decades. Dry Riesling is also a strength in Australia, and we do see some of those come through. When judging Riesling, we look for intensity, we look for length, we look perhaps above all else for balance. To pair with that, often it has a touch of residual sugar. Whether dry or medium, the acidity must be in balance with that sugar and also with the fruit weight. Citrus, lime, lemon, apple, white blossom are common aromas of Riesling. Older Riesling, which we do often judge as well, tends to develop more richness in mouthfeel, and it can have a kerosene type character or a hint of honey. Ehrenfelser, which is really hard to say, is another variety that we saw perhaps for the first time this year. And it's reminiscent of Riesling aromatically, but it has a little bit more weight and texture. A very exciting wine to try.
I'll start with the champion aromatic, the Villa Maria Albarino. Albarino is probably one of the more successful, less known grape variety in New Zealand, and comes from Spain, a little bit grown in Portugal. It is the seafood wine. You can have it with the fresh oysters, scallops, steamed mussels, mussel fritters. It's got that little bit more weight than Pinot Grigio, but good acidity, which works so well with the seafood. And then we got the Moscato, which is totally different. It's low in alcohol, about 6%, and medium sweet, just a little bit of sparkle. It's not proper sparkling, but what they call crackling or spritzy. And it is just a really fruity rock melon, stone fruit, tropical fruit. And in summer, you can actually pour it over ice and have it as a cold drink. It's just a little bit sweeter, goes well with a light style dessert. Gewürztraminer. We have two Rieslings, Cooper's Creek, just off dry in style, just starting to develop that bottle developed toasty characters Jen mentioned, whereas Creterim is just a little bit sweeter, medium dry style with a sort of more grilled peach and honey notes coming through. So quite different styles. Ehrenfelser, as Jen mentioned, it's a Riesling-like, but just a little bit more weight to it. And this particular one has sort of a sweetness to it. So you can match it with things like prosciutto, salami, and then, pate and things like that. And it'll be quite delicious.
Now we'll move on to Chardonnay. This is another grape variety that thrives throughout New Zealand. In every place where grapes are grown, you can find a world-class Chardonnay. And many of these as well, you can find at a great value under $25. Balance, complexity, and harmony are the key, no matter which style the grower embraces. We find styles that are classic. We use descriptors going back to citrus, melon, and apple, and some that are a bit more funky. We might call them flinty or smoky or earthy. When we judge, we look for harmony and complexity above all else.
Boy, Chardonnay is such a complex grape variety. I mean, we can talk about it all day. I could drink it all day too. But stylistically, consumers often ask, what's a big style Chardonnay? What's a lighter style Chardonnay? And it's difficult to know unless you actually try them all. Of the Chardonnays we've got in the top 50, 2 or 3 of them are quite a lighter style. That Montfort, St. Clair, Vicar's Choice, Origin, and Tepa, they tend to be sort of a more elegant, refined style of Chardonnay, not too much oak. Then you go to Stoneleigh and Villa Maria Cellar Selection, that they're a little bit more weightier, richer, a little bit more oak influence, but still not oaky. And then probably the biggest of the Chardonnays we've got there is the Mystic Cove Landmark. Just a little bit more oomph, more obvious oak there. So there's something hopefully for everyone.
G'day everyone, my name's Robert. I hope you enjoyed Jen and Sam's information and find it very helpful when dealing with your customers. When talking to your customers, be as confident as you can. Don't forget, they're looking for you to make a recommendation. You'll be surprised at how much a smile will make the customer that much more at ease and will be much more approachable when taking advice and seeking help from you. To help break the ice, ask if they have a particular varietal or style in mind. If they don't, ask them what their flavour profiles might be. That can give you an indication as to what you can start referring them to. Another useful tool to ask them, is it being drunk on its own or is it being consumed with food? And remember, the color of protein is the color of wine. Keep asking questions. The more questions you ask, the more informed you will be and the easier it will be for you to make a recommendation. It would be really beneficial to have a copy of the customer guide on you at most times, as it could help you work through with that customer, help them choose a wine. Another really key question, ask them if they have a budget or price band in mind. This is a really helpful guide to know which wines you can take them to start off with. There's nothing more frustrating from a customer point of view to just be pointed at and told it's over there. When you're with the customer and the wine, take the wine off the display and off the shelf. That way the customer can look at it in more detail, and it's actually a lot easier than if they want to take it that it's already there in their hand or close to their trolley and basket. One thing that you can do to try and help with the customer making decisions, try and make it relevant to an occasion or an event, i.e. rosé for a hen's night or bubbles for a celebration, or if they're having a hearty steak dinner, a nice grunty red wine like a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Shiraz. If a wine has won multiple times in the past at previous awards, e.g. the Tipar Chardonnay that won last year, mention that, but be mindful that the vintage may be different. Give some advice about how they can drink it and what glassware to use, e.g. flutes for champagne, a smaller glass for white wines and rosé, or a big bulbous glass so they can really get their nose in to get the aromas for a big red wine. To help with the upsell, try and have empty cartons or wine carriers somewhere in the department or really close by. You'll be surprised at how many times you can give an empty carton to a customer and they go from 3 bottles to filling that carton. A really great trade-up tool. While they're in the department, and once they've made their decision, don't forget to ask, is there anything else you can help with? Is there a beer or a cider that they're looking for? It's a great way to get add-on sales, or to even make them feel more comfortable. If they want something else anywhere else in the shop, you can always take them there or point them in the right direction. Lastly, once you're finished with the customer, say thanks and wish them a good day. Ask them if there's anything else that you can help them with. And don't forget, thank them for choosing to shop at your store. Wish them a farewell. Wish them a happy weekend. Tell them to enjoy the rest of their day. Where possible, try and end that interaction with the customer on a positive note. Thanks very much for your time today.
Now we're moving on to bubbles or sparkling wine. New Zealand is becoming known as a world-class country for producing sparkling wine that is also of great value and consistency, which is important as well. We're seeing also outside of New Zealand a rise in Prosecco, which is sparkling wine made in both Italy and in Australia. When judging, we look for freshness, we look for length and the appropriate bead or those bubbles that make it sparkle. The New Zealand method wines, which are made similar to how they make them in Champagne, are often rich and complex with biscuity or yeasty characters. Prosecco and Cava from Spain, which we sometimes judge as well, tend to be a bit fruitier and lighter in body. The best examples tend to come from these categories, although we do sometimes see interesting sparkling wines made from varieties like Sauvignon Blanc, Muscat, and Shiraz.
We'll start with the Linda Special Reserve. Gosh, the Linda's been around for decades. Everyone knows it and still delivers the deliciousness and beautifully balanced and refreshing and beautiful, gorgeous drink. The Prosecco, the Graham Norton's one, as Jen mentioned, is the rosé, but it's just a very subtle hint of strawberry, cherry kind of notes in there. But it is kind of that appley, stone fruity, and not too acidic, so it's kind of refreshing, juicy, just comforting anytime, bubbly. And then a Verde, which is more serious style, almost like champagne, not quite as refined and complex and sophisticated, but it's got that yeasty characters coming through, beautiful balance, a little bit drier, so a little bit more serious. So people wanting, dinner party sparkling, Verde is terrific.
We'll move on to rosé. In the last several years, we've seen an increase in the number of entries of rosé, as well as the number of medals awarded and the diversity in style. What's most exciting for us as judges is that there's so much diversity and no one type of rosé is best. We see everything from the palest of pink, darker pink, and even getting into what might be viewed as light red. They're all appropriate and they tend to be derived from the place they're grown and the varieties that are used. So rosé, sometimes we see the very bone dry, crisp, red apple, crunchy raspberry sorts of styles. And then we can see the more textured ones that get into the darker berry. Once rosé was thought of as a summer drink, and that certainly holds true. It's a great choice for summer gatherings. However, in New Zealand, it can be enjoyed year-round, particularly in some of the warmer climates further north. It's a wonderful wine with food. It's great for food pairing, but it's also just lovely on its own. By the river, on the deck, at a barbecue.
There was a time we would struggle to find one gold medal rosé in a wine show. But now, in the last few years, there's just abundance of high quality rosés. So we are really blessed. And if you love it, just so many good ones to choose from. We've got in our selection Soho, the rosé, probably the lightest, almost going towards the Provence style, quite restrained in fruit, delicate, elegant, light, crisp, dry. And then you move on to the other rosés, the more popular style, sort of fresh, juicy, refreshing, and quite delicious, just very easy to drink, very approachable. Then you got other end, slightly heavier, the Esk Valley and the Me by Matahiri, just a little bit fuller. Esk Valley is made from Merlot and other grapes, and Matahiri so slightly darker in color, so it's almost getting towards the red wine, but still retains that rosé, refreshing vibrancy. It's a lovely selection.
And now we're going to move on to the red varieties, starting with one near and dear to me, Pinot Noir. Pinot Noir is the most widely planted red grape variety in New Zealand, and it's generally found from the bottom of the North Island, what we can call Wellington wine country, and further south, Nelson, Marlborough, Canterbury, and Otago. Pinot is similar to Chardonnay in that we see great examples at all different price points, and they're made in many different styles. The style or character of Pinot Noir usually comes from where the grapes are grown, so whether the climate is cool or warm, wet or drier, but there's also a bit of influence in the winemaker's impression. Purity, balance, freshness, length, and complexity are things we look for when judging. We find beautiful examples of the lighter weight Pinot Noirs, which might have strawberries, red apple, and cherries, and others that are more savory, spicy, and you might see some darker fruit, blueberry, blackberry, and plum. Great Pinot Noir requires harmony between acidity and tannin and the alcohol. Everything needs to be in balance.
It's great to have so many excellent Pinot Noirs under $25. You know, that used to be you have to spend $30, $40 to get a decent one. Now we've got so many good ones. The stylistically, the likes of the Madame Sass and the Ned, they are the ones that sort of are more fruit forward, bright, juicy, pristine, and fragrant. Whereas things like Luna, Toy, and the Champion Pinot, MacArthur Ridge, it's got their lovely dark fruit richness, but with the spicy, savory nuances, just a hint of mushroom. So if people are looking for that sort of more complex, savory, spicy style, you know, the MacArthur Ridge is terrific. Toy is the same, and Luna. If people are looking for the more fruit-driven, cleaner, fresher, slightly lighter style, the Ned and the Madame Sass is gorgeous.
Hi, I'm Nat Christensen, Chief Winemaker at Yealands Estate. I was really lucky to be one of the judges at the New World Wine Awards, and I was blown away about how professional and how well run and how rigorous the judging process was. Being a judge, I didn't get to judge my own wines, so we did do incredibly well in this show, and we were really excited as a team when the results came through, but it's not from me sniffing out our wines, which gives you confidence that the judging process is very fair. But we did really well with our Yealands Reserve 21 Sauvignon, and we were super excited because we did well with that one. I think one of the things that Yealands loves about the New World Wine Awards is it's one of the only shows that really talks to customers, and it gives you guys the confidence that you're selling quality products to your customers. People can potentially try new things that they wouldn't normally try because it's got this really awesome accolade that it's been judged by expert palates, that it's an awesome wine and an awesome example of that variety.
Now we're going to talk about single variety reds, which, like the aromatic whites, are judged as a group. Where there is enough volume, we might judge the varieties separately, but ultimately there is one top wine for this category. We have a wealth of varieties ranging from the classic Bordeaux, like Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot. We also saw some exciting Tempranillo. We saw Sangiovese, de Rive, Petit Syrah. There are a number of varieties that we get to judge. With these wines, with underripe fruit is very obvious, both in terms of flavor and the texture or tannin. So we're looking for appropriate ripeness, because equally overripe or jammy styles can be over the top. Generally, these wines are more structured and savory, but they can also be deliciously fruity. We make an effort to recruit judges who have a wealth of experience judging and making and studying these styles of wines so that they can be a reference point for others who might not have that same level of experience.
So we'll start with the champion wine, the Argentinian Malbec. And as you know, Argentina, they love meat. Malbec is designed to go with that. It's firm, sturdy, bold, with a little bit of a sort of kind of gamey nuance in there. This is terrific if people wanting something other than Cabernets or Shiraz. Then we've got De Bortoli, just a little bit fuller, a little bit richer, just getting towards that almost the Shiraz style. And the Love Nut or Tempranillo. Now, this is an interesting one, very pristine, showing fruit purity beautifully, without too much oak or any spicy flavors. And they claim they use a minimal amount of sulfur. So people sometimes ask for low sulfur dioxide in wine. This will be the perfect one for that.
Now we'll move on to red blends. And the first thought that comes to mind certainly is Bordeaux blends. They could be Merlot Cabernet or Cabernet Merlot. It tends to be listed by whatever variety is dominant comes first in the listing. And those may have a little bit of Cabernet Franc or Petit Verdot as well. We also get to judge some great examples of Rhone blends, that GSMs, as they like to call them in Australia, which stands for Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre. And occasionally you find a Cabernet Shiraz combination or other things you might not have thought of off the top of your head. We judge these wines much like we do the single variety reds, but when you're putting different varieties together, it's about how they work in harmony.
Right, there's a couple of fabulous wines in the mix. Trinity Hill is the Merlot dominant, so is Esquivali. And these are not huge wines, medium full-bodied. It's based on the classic Bordeaux and what British used to call claret. And claret never used to be a big wine, a little bit bigger these days, but it's about medium full-bodied, really designed to go with food. So nothing too powerful like Shiraz. So it's a Merlot with a bit of other Bordeaux varieties in there. And it is just a silky smooth with just a little bit of chalky tannins at the end, which, you know, works so well with a variety of meat dishes, including, roast chicken and grilled chicken, things like that. So I think it's just a good all-round red wine.
In New Zealand, most Syrah comes from Hawke's Bay and further north, but you do see examples even in the far south, Canterbury and Marlborough, but the majority is grown up in the North Island where the climate's a little bit warmer. Top examples might be full-bodied with apt tannin, or they might be fresh with bright fruit and spice. The New Zealand examples seem to be the fresher, brighter style. Concentration, again, purity, length, and above all, interest, again, is what we look for. But we see excellent examples of aged Syrah and Shiraz as well.
I'll start with champion Syrah, Trinity Hill again. When we taste at the wine show, all the judges were just blown away how good it was. Pure, clean, and so elegant, yet quite powerful and persistent. This is a textbook Syrah. If a wine student wants to know what real Syrah tastes like, this is it. It's just so well made. And we talk about great vintages for Sauvignon Blanc, but great vintages for reds too in Hawke's Bay, 21, 20, and 19. Amazing vintages. So it's the fruit delivering amazing fruit richness and density without being too tough. So I think the Trinity Hill is a gorgeous example. And then we have two Aussie examples, St. Helens and Mr. Riggs. Mr. Riggs probably a little bit bigger, I think, and slightly more oak influence in there. St. Helens a little bit more graceful, smooth and flowing, but still quite a big wine. Mr. Riggs, it's upfront, unashamedly Aussie Shiraz with everything going for it. So if you want a big, powerful, luscious, lavish wine, Mr. Riggs is fabulous.
Hi, I'm Claire, and my question for you is, the home of Prosecco is which country? Italy.
Hi, my name's Chris Anderson, and my question for you is, what wine would you triage, riddle, and dose? The answer is Methode Traditional Sparkling.
Hi, I'm Alice Lane. My question is, what is the alcohol percentage in a quality soy sauce, such as curcumin? And the answer is around 3%.
Hi, I'm Hayden. My question for you is, what is the predominant grape variety that is used in making Prosecco? And my answer is Prosecco grapes.
Hi, I'm Petra Mihalovic. My question for you is, in which country is the city of Shiraz, where legend has it, the grape varietal originated from? Iran.
Hi, my name's John, and my question for you is, what is the #1 selling champagne worldwide? And the answer is Moet and Chandon.
Hi, I'm Sarah. My question for you today is, in the 100-point scale, what's the lowest point given to a gold medal wine? Well, the answer to that one is 95 points.
Hi, I'm Katie Moyman. So my question for you is, which is the second largest wine region in New Zealand? And the answer is Hawke's Bay.
Hi, my name's Renee Waru, and my question for you is, MacArthur Ridge is in which region of New Zealand? And the answer is Central Otago.
I'm Rachel.Touhey. How many years have the New World Wine Awards been running? And the answer is 19 years.
Well, guys, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for attending this virtual session. We're in a pretty unique space at the moment with the COVID conditions, but thank you so much for attending. And hopefully the last half an hour you've learned something, particularly that quiz. Hopefully there's been a few questions that have helped your wine knowledge. For those of you that want to hang around now, there's a great opportunity to stay and there's extra for expert session that we're going to have. So grab yourself a glass of wine, sit back, relax, and hopefully you learn something else out of that part. What I really wanted to just finish on and reiterate is just how amazing our wine awards are. Trust the judges, trust the process. What the guys go through is a rigorous process. It's so amazing to see it firsthand. It was great to see it firsthand in Blenheim this year, but the process is incredibly rigorous. The wines that make it to the top 50 are well deserving. They've been judged so many times, tasted so many times. We've got the cream of the crop, guys. So please trust the process, trust the judges, pass on that knowledge to our great customer base. Importantly, go out there and have fun when we launch on the 4th of October. Let's nail the campaign. Let's bring some fun back to our customers after some COVID lockdown environments. It's a great lineup commercially. Let's go out there and nail it. So thanks, everyone. Hope you've enjoyed the last half hour. As I say, dial in now and enjoy that session with the experts.
think the point of this little session is really to help you enjoy wine more at home. And I think the first thing that most people don't realize is that so much of wine appreciation comes through the nose. Your senses, so much is right in here. And if you don't start by smelling the wine, then you're going to miss out on so much of what the wine is going to give you. So what we do is, I've got a lovely Chardonnay here. It happens to be in what is known as a Pinot Noir glass, but I don't have enough space in my cupboard to have too many different types. But Chardonnay and Pinot Noir are often grown in the same areas, so it's about as close as I can come. What you want to do is you want to swirl it a little bit. Often you would sniff first before the swirl, but I get too excited. I've got wine in my hand, so I tend to swirl right away. What that does is it's allowing a little bit of oxygen to circulate into the glass. Then you put the nose in. If you're filling the wine quite full, you might want to be a little bit careful about how far you put your nose in, but you really shouldn't fill the wine glass too full anyway, because you want to leave that room for that oxygen. So then you just give it a little sniff and another sniff. So I'm smelling citrus, I'm smelling melon, I'm smelling a little bit of butterscotch. It's making me excited. For some reason, it's making me think about being next to the sea. There's a saltiness to this wine. So right away, I am literally salivating. I'm salivating from what I smell. So imagine then what happens when you actually take a little sip. So I might let you, Sam, talk about where you go after you've given it the sniff.
Yeah, well, I'm like you, Jen. I go straight into it. And I look for the first impression, and I think that's the most important thing. So when you first smell and then have another smell, and by then you should have a pretty good idea what wine might look like. I haven't tasted it yet, but the initial impression, I think, is super important, and which will lead you to the palate.
So then the palate, it comes next. So after you've had your sniff, you want to take just a little sip. And I'm sitting at home, I'm not going anywhere. I've had a good day's work. So I'm going to actually swallow this wine. If we were judging, of course, we would be spitting. So after I've smelled it, I already start to get the little smile. My salivary glands are working full speed because this is a very gorgeous smelling wine. Take a little sip. Big sips and gulping are for another time. That's not wine appreciation. Just a little sip. And I did it quite subtly because it's a little bit embarrassing if you're too full on, but I kind of did a tiny little slurp to let a little bit of air go into my mouth. And then I let that little sip go all over, hitting every part of my tongue and my cheeks and my taste buds, because these different areas in your mouth pick up different things. Sugar, salty, tannin, acid, there's different receptors. So you want to make sure that the wine hits it all. And then you swallow. And then you take a moment. If it's a good wine, like the one that ones that we've picked for you in the top 50, you take a moment to appreciate a wine that's well made. And for me, this takes me straight to the place where it came from. Somewhere salty, somewhere fresh, somewhere by the sea.
Sounds fantastic. Now I've got a Pinot Noir, a 2015 Central Tiger Pinot. And when you smell it, it's so complex. It's starting to show that developed characters. There's certainly sweet fruit in there, spicy, almost like roast meat and mushroomy, all those forest floor complexity coming through. And on the palate, it's silky smooth and just very, very silky and fine. Some of the questions that we get asked is, how do you describe wine? Because you taste wine, oh, that tastes really good, but how do you come up with descriptors? I used to, and I still do, smell different things, especially in the kitchen. Go to the kitchen, open spices, open cumin, those jars of little spices, cumin, coriander seeds, black pepper, white pepper, all those things, star anise, and have a smell, and that will reinforce that memory trigger. So when you smell it next time, you can describe those things, just as long as you enjoy it and practice is the key.
Practice in moderation and try different things.
Yeah.
I think another thing to touch on, which is quite complex, but is the temperature of wine. And everybody has their own preference, but generally most white wines you do want to serve chilled, along with rosé and sparkling, and red wines you would serve at room temperature. But I do caution, particularly with the aromatic reds like Pinot Noir, in summertime, you don't want to keep them anywhere too warm. Red wine that is too warm or too cold isn't going to show you the perfect aromatic and textural profile. So you do want to think a little bit about temperature in terms of where you store your wine and how you serve your wine. So this Chardonnay, probably a little bit too cold right out of my fridge, but that's okay because it's warming in the glass. Somewhere like 12 degrees, maybe. The experts have a different range, but you want it to have that little glimmer of the chill in the glass when you serve it. The most important thing, smell the wine, have a sip, enjoy it, and see what, and Sam's very right. What does it remind you of? What experience, what place, what person? I remember the first time I had a Chardonnay with my gran, and she loved Chardonnay. And I remember sitting on her porch and how exciting that was. I think that's the great thing about wine, and what your customers look for in wine as well, is it's about remembering a moment in time, where you were, what you're eating, who you're with, how you felt. And when you take the time to smell and savor the flavors of a wine, it'll bring you back to these wonderful times in your life. And that, to me, is what appreciating wine is really all about.
Well, cheers to that, Jen.
Cheers to that, Sam.